that's Zach, the operator for the heist and the obstacle course. This is Nathaniel. He's the captain of our team. Over right there that's Alina. She's our operator for the tether lead. And that's Kristen, and she's the operator, another operator for the heist. And we traveled for 10 hours to get here, 594 miles, long way. And we're 6th graders up in Mount Vernon High School from Southern Indiana. So, yeah, and so, vehicle frame? So constructing the vehicle frame of our sea perch was the first step in the entire part of the sea perch. So, okay. Well, first, basically, we just had to get all our pipes together and drill the drain holes. We have to do that so water can flow freely, through the sea perch.
We attach the payload net using zip ties, and it holds the wire in place. We also painted the elbows orange so that whenever it was in the obstacle course, we could see it more easily. Then we painted this black to tell the difference between them. We also, during the heist and the obstacle course, changed the floats so that whenever we go down to pick up the weights, we can not pick up these, I think it's these, but with the ones that we use for the obstacle course, they can't lift weights.
Yeah, and we have actually thought that our sea perch is a tiger shark, so whenever it's moving through the obstacle course, we have to try to think that it is the tiger shark, so it moves fast and controlled and smooth, and it goes in the right direction, so whenever you're going through them, it's aware of what it rings. So that kind of helped us keep us on track and kind of helped us encourage our minds. So now they're going to tell you about the thrusters.
When we built the thrusters, we used a bunch of the tools and materials other than provided in the kit. The first thing we had to do was we marked the positive terminal on the motors, and then after we did that, we taped the motors with electrical tape so that the water couldn't get in. And after we did that, we put the propellers on, and we had to sand the shafts, and then we used an alcohol pad on them, and we sanded them and stuff so that the glue would stick to it better, and we'd be able to keep the propellers actually on the motors.
And before we actually put the propellers onto the motors, what we did was we put a thin round of electrical tape around the motor itself to keep water from getting into the main bases of all the main parts of the motor that would, if water got into there, it would ruin the whole thing. So when we did that, we put a thin layer of electrical tape to where it would still be able to fit into the capsule, and then we had to make sure it fit tightly and smoothly. And the next thing we had to do was we had to get toilet bowl wax, and we had to put a small ball of it down into the bottom of it. That's going to keep water from getting into these small holes here that the shaft runs through. And then the next thing we had to do is we had to still make sure that it fit right through the hole that it made. And next, what we did was we put electrical tape, toilet bowl wax right here around the top of it to keep these wires safe and to clog up this hole so water doesn't get in there, just to make sure. So we had double waterproof just to make sure that no water got in here from the motors.
When we put the wires on, we soldered the wires to the motors, and then after we did that, we hooked them onto the payload net with the zip ties, and then we zip tied the thrusters to the frame, and we zip tied them several times so that they actually stay better.
And then the next thing we had to do was involving each other, connecting to all the motors. The next thing we had to do was, you can see that there's a lot of electrical tape and stuff right here. That's because if we just didn't have electrical tape or dummy tape right there, water would get into it. So the first thing we had to do with that was we found the end of it where the hole would be. And we had to make sure that it was dummy taped really good so there would be no small holes in the dummy tape. So we had to make sure it was really tight around there because with these little wires, little holes can be made and water can get into the tether. And then we put, so after we made sure all the dummy tape was on there, good and tight, no water would get through, we put electrical tape on there so that dummy tape is really sticky. And if we would go through the water, a lot of stuff would get caught on there. And also it's just a backup to make sure that dummy tape stays on there and that no water gets through because we electrical tape it all the way to the end there. So water couldn't come through that end or this end. And then that's about all we did. The thrusters. And now we don't know Kristen and I will talk at the control box.
The first thing we did in the control box was find the negative and positive wires and mark them with the alligator clips.
And the next, okay, so after that, what we did was we got the circuit board out and we found all the spots for the toggle switches, the turn switches, toggle and turn switches, I was thinking, and the up and down switches. So after we located all that, and we also had to locate the fuse too. That was very important. I forgot about that stuff. So we located the fuse slot, and we went on to finding all the slots where the toggle switches and up and down switches are. So after we found those, we made sure they were a nice, easy fit into the small holes that were in the circuit board, and we soldered all the 11 connections. We made sure that we also had to check for no bridging. And after that, what we did was we found the slot where this piece right here slides into so that the control box connects to all the wires. So that was in the spot labeled RJ45. So what we did, we didn't have to solder, I think, on that one. All we had to do was pop it in there and make sure that it didn't wiggle around, because if we wiggled it around, then it kind of ended up having a loose connection. So that's about what we did with soldering and stuff on the control box.
And finally, the finishing touches were made, like screwing on the top of the control box. And the control box is like a tiger shark because it's like the heart and we're the brain. Without the heart, it wouldn't move or go anywhere. So we have to have that to keep it going.
We have to have our brains to work everything.
Yeah.
First place.
They don't have us. Don't have Marley. And the whole thing together. The whole thing, everything that we did comes together and makes just one machine that we call the Tiger Shark, and they all work together to make it move, operate, and perform perfectly in the water. So that's why we think it's a Tiger Shark. You've heard everybody's opinion on which part they think and why it's like a Tiger Shark. So, you guys have any questions?
Yeah, I do. One of the principles you guys are studying with this is buoyancy. Can you tell me a little bit about buoyancy and how it relates to Perch there?
With the buoyancy, it helps it rise and sink. Not really sink, but the motor does the sinking part. But whenever it's at the bottom, the motor might not be able to pull it all the way up. So we have the flotation that makes it rise easier. We invested in different sizes of flotation. We tried 6 inches, it didn't work, it couldn't descend. We tried 5 inches, it couldn't descend. We also tried 4 inches, still couldn't descend. Then we tried 3 inches. It could descend, but it couldn't pick up any weight. Then we also tried 3.25 inches. It could descend, but it still couldn't pick up any weights. Then we tried 3.75 inches. It couldn't descend at all. And then finally, we tried 3.5 inches, and it actually descended and picked up the weight.
So what does that mean, something to be buoyant? What does that mean?
It means they can float on the surface of a liquid.
Okay.
If something is buoyant, they can float.
All right. If y'all had to do it again, would you make any changes?
Yeah, probably because I think next year in Seabird, I would rather go with a modified Seabird that's a little bit smaller and compact. But with this, it's big and bulky. It's kind of hard to make it do some obstacles. Like we were having trouble with the height opening the door and stuff. If we go with a modified Seabird, it's smaller, compact, and it's still got the same power as this. So if we went with a modified, I think it'd be a little bit better because they move a little bit faster through the water, I think, and we don't have to. Yeah, we have to change rotation. And one problem is probably the big one is we run out of motors really fast because this thing's kind of hard on getting down and out. So with the smaller one, it also helps.